The wind descended without warning, slicing through the mountain, past and swallowing what little warmth the evening had left behind. Daniel cursed under his breath as he dragged the last bundle of dry wood into the abandoned trapping cabin. The structure was barely more than 4 walls and a sagging roof, hidden among pines bent crooked by years of storms. It wasn't shelter by choice, it was shelter by desperation. By the time the door slammed shut, night had already claimed the forest. The fire crackled weakly, casting restless shadows that danced across the walls. Daniel rubbed his hands together, watching his breath bloom white in the dim light. This far north, cold was not just discomfort. It was a living threat. Naya moved with quiet certainty, checking the seams of the walls, pressing her palm against the gaps where wind slipped through. She was Apache, born to land that taught hard lessons early. These mountains were not her home, but she understood cold, hunger, and survival better than most. "The fire won't hold," Daniel said, breaking the silence. "Not till morning." Naya nodded once. "I know." Outside, the wind rose into a howl, rattling the door like it wanted inside. Snow began to fall harder, thick flakes swirling past the small window. The temperature dropped so fast it felt like the night itself was tightening its grip. Daniel's eyes drifted to the narrow bed against the far wall. Old blankets lay folded on top, thin but better than nothing. He looked away quickly, unease settling in his chest. "We can take turns sleeping," he offered. "Keep the fire alive." "That won't be enough," Naya said. Her voice was calm but final. She stepped closer, meeting his gaze. "The cold will steal your strength while you watch the flames. By dawn, you won't be able to move." She gestured toward the bed. "If we don't sleep in the same bed, we will freeze tonight." "Don't resist." Daniel hesitated, pride and instinct warring with reason. The wind slammed against the cabin again, forcing a sharp draft through the cracks. His fingers had already begun to numb. This wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about closeness. It was about staying alive. Slowly, he nodded. Naya turned back to the fire, adding one last piece of wood. "We survive the night," she said. "Then we worry about the rest." The flames flickered, uncertain, as the mountain pressed in around them. They lay down cautiously, as if the narrow bed itself might protest their presence. The mattress sagged in the middle, forcing them closer than either had planned. Daniel kept his body rigid, staring up at the dark ceiling where shadows trembled with each gust of wind. The cold seeped through the blankets almost immediately, creeping along his spine and into his bones. Naya noticed. She always noticed. His breathing was shallow, uneven, the kind that came from fighting both fear and freezing air. Outside, the storm screamed, snow hissing against the walls like sand. The fire popped once, then settled into a dull, weakening glow. "You're wasting heat," she said quietly. "I don't want to cross a line," Daniel replied, his voice tight. Naya turned her head slightly to look at him. "Cold does not care about lines." She shifted closer, not abruptly, but with deliberate calm. Her shoulder brushed his arm, warm even through layers of clothing. Daniel inhaled sharply, instinctively pulling back. But the moment he did, a violent shiver tore through him. His teeth clicked despite his effort to stop them. Naya did not scold him. Instead, she reached out and pulled the blanket tighter around them both, closing the gaps where warmth escaped. "Listen," she murmured. "When people panic, they die faster. Breathe with me." Reluctantly, Daniel matched her slow rhythm. In and out, gradually the shaking eased. Heat began to build between them, faint at first, then steady. It was strange how quickly his body responded, how desperately it clung to the shared warmth. "My grandmother told stories like this," Naya said after a while, her voice barely louder than the wind. "Travelers caught between storms. The mountain tests whether you can let go of fear." Daniel swallowed. "Did they survive?" "Those who trusted did." Another gust slammed into the cabin, making the walls creak. Instinct overrode hesitation. Daniel shifted closer without thinking, his arm pressing lightly against her side. She did not comment, only adjusted to make room, grounding and solid. The fire finally gave up, plunging the room into deeper darkness. Yet Daniel no longer felt the sharp bite of cold. Instead, there was a quiet awareness, a fragile calm suspended between them. Not intimacy, not romance, something simpler and more necessary. As sleep began to claim him, he realized something unexpected. For the first time since the storm began, he was no longer afraid of the night. Morning did not arrive with warmth. It came slowly, reluctantly, as pale light seeped through the cracks in the cabin and revealed a world locked in ice. The storm had exhausted itself some time before dawn, leaving behind a heavy silence so complete it felt unreal. Daniel stirred first, blinking as awareness returned. The fire was long dead, the air still bitter, yet he was warm in a way he hadn't been hours before. He became conscious of Naya beside him, already awake, her breathing steady. She was staring toward the window, listening, as if the mountain might speak again. When she shifted, the blankets rustled softly. "We made it through," he said, his voice rough from sleep and cold. Naya nodded. "The night released us." They sat up, reluctant to abandon the fragile heat they had built. Daniel swung his legs off the bed, boots stiff with frost. Every movement felt heavy, as if the cold still clung to his joints, unwilling to let go. He pulled on his coat and crossed the room, pushing the door open just enough to look outside. The forest stood frozen and glittering, branches bowed under fresh snow. The sky was a washed-out blue, the kind that promised cold, but no more violence. The wind was gone. In its place was a quiet that demanded respect. "It's safe to move now," Naya said as she joined him. "But not quickly. The mountain lets you go the way it chooses." They shared what little food remained, chewing slowly, conserving strength. Daniel found himself watching her as she prepared their packs, noticing the economy of her movements, the calm confidence that had carried them through the night. Gratitude settled in his chest, deeper than words. "I wouldn't have survived without you," he said finally. Naya paused, then met his eyes. "You survived because you listened. Many don't." They stepped outside together, boots crunching into untouched snow. The cold bit at their faces, but it no longer felt like an enemy. Each breath carried clarity instead of fear. As they began the careful descent from the mountainside, the cabin disappeared behind them, swallowed by trees and drifting white. Daniel glanced back once, then forward again. Something had shifted during the night, something quiet but lasting. Trust, perhaps. Understanding. The mountain loomed behind them, vast and indifferent, but it had allowed them passage. And as they walked on beneath the pale morning sky, Daniel knew he would never forget the lesson carved into that frozen night. Survival was not always about standing alone.